Hey everyone, this is the next installment of my how-to series. Did a couple of these back earlier in the month, I think back in November, and then the holidays hit, and I've been trying to punch out orders and spend time with the family and enjoy the holiday season. I don't really get a chance to do anymore. But my wife messaged me today with, I thought, a topic that was just really good, and I thought was one of those that I could show it easier than I could explain it. So we're going to talk about what do you do when your pattern that you've got fits in one area but doesn't fit in the other. So the question that the gentleman asked on the forum was, generally speaking, when you're talking about proportions, your chest size is about 6 inches larger than your waist, generally speaking. And pattern companies play the odds. They can't make a bunch of different patterns for garments tailored to everyone. That would be impossible to do. So what they do is they play the odds. They say, okay, for example, 50% of the male population that has a 40-inch chest is going to have a 34-inch waist. They're going to make their patterns based on those average measurements. However, we're all individual, and we're going to have people that don't meet the average. So what do? And what I'm going to try and show you tonight is is a method that I learned how to deal with that problem. And I'm going to use a female example because generally speaking, I find this to be more of a problem on women's stuff. But getting back to the question at hand, the gentleman, he sent a message and he said, I am a 36-inch chest, but I've measured my waist and, it's about the same size. It was like a 35-inch waist with his chest. And I've tried playing with my patterns and, it always, when I mess around with them, it always skews them. And so, what's the guy to do? He's no one should be deprived the goal of a well-fitting outfit. So I'm going to try and teach something that I learned, and I'm also going to throw in a few personal anecdotes to illustrate why we do it this way, so you don't have to make the same mistakes I did, and how you can correct this problem. So I'll use a great example. I was doing Civil War, and I was making my first frock coat ever. And I was all excited. And I had some really great Ben Tart Boar Brown jean cloth. And, frock coat's supposed to be very tailored. And I'm just, I'm going nuts on this thing. And I had a Charlie Childs pattern at the time. So anyways, I went and I made it. And I put on the outer body. And I put it to pin it to see how it fit. And it fit great in the chest. But as you looked, it kind of went like this down. So it started a little triangle about an inch at the base around my waist. Charlie had grafted and graded his patterns to fit a very strict proportions. If you got a Charlie Childs pattern and you were a 42 chest, better have a 36 on the nose waist. At the time, I was about a 38 because I wasn't taking care of myself like I should have. So I had to really play with this thing to get it to fit. And it did fit. More importantly, I went and got my butt in the gym and was able to knock some weight off. But it's still one of those things that it's better to know what you're dealing with up front than try and deal with it on the back end after you've cut your fabric. So my first rule with this is always make a muslin. If you're getting a pattern from a company that you're not really familiar with and there aren't various sizes listed on the sizing chart on the back of the pattern, make a muslin. That'll let you know where everything falls and fits. And you can make your adjustments accordingly off of that. It also, like I said, saves you from cutting expensive fabric and then having to redo it. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to give you an example of a technique to deal with when you find yourself either in between sizes or not in the proportion chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera around just a little bit so you can see the cutting table, which also doubles as my sunroom table. Okay, so what do we have here? So, well, first of all, let's get into what you're going to need. So the first thing you're going to need is your pattern. Another trick of the trade. I use Pellon 830 fabric for doing my patterns. I know some people use, I knew one seamstress I knew, she loved wrapping paper because of the grid squares, and she could do a lot of her grading based on that. I know some tailors, if they got a lot of room, they'll have thick cardstock patterns that are really, really hefty, and you just can chalk around. It's easy to chalk around the outside. I prefer the Pellon because I don't have as much space, and I love the Pellon because it's durable. You can fold it up in an envelope or a baggie with your notations on it, throw it in a Tupperware container, and when you pull it out, all you gotta do is maybe sometimes press the wrinkles out, and it's ready to go. It's transparent, so you can trace over stuff. I really like working with it. So you're gonna need your pattern. You're gonna need a French curl, especially one with a nice straight edge. And you're gonna need your chalk marker and your shears. I'm not using the shears on these because this is some really nice gray cavalry twill that I've got, and I'm not cutting this pattern off of it. I'm doing it. I'm using this material because I think it'll show up the best on the camera. All right, so what are we working with here? So today we're going to take my whack waist pattern, and this is a size 36, and we're going to modify it so that it fits someone with a little bit larger hip measurement. Okay. We found out the hard way, again, going back to making a muslin, when I made Diana's first whack waist, that my pattern was on the nose to the original one, the original I based it off of, but the originals, again, had a very strict grade system. And so when we put it on her, it was a little tight in the hips. This is the perfect opportunity to show you what you should do in that situation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our waistline, which is right about where this dart is. I don't know if you can see it. I want you to get the more of the garment that we're working with in my ugly mug. Okay, so we've got a dart right here on this garment. What we're going to do is we're going to run our straight edge right off the top of the dart, and we're going to chalk out a little mark there. That's going to be your waist. This is where you're going to, I want to say it's going to be your waistline, but it's going to be your stopping point for what we're about to do. Okay, so we've got our line marked. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chalk this out on the fabric like we normally would. Again, big tip for me, again, I used to do this all the time. I used to slap my patterns down and tin them and cut them out around the pattern. Don't do that. Chalk works so much better. It saves your patterns, and it will, trust me, you can make your modifications with it a lot easier. So, but anyways, you're going to chalk upper body portion of the bottom of the garment. Okay, so we've got the upper part of our garment Done. This is where it's going to take this is where art meets skill to a certain degree. We're going to, for this argument, we're going to say someone has significantly larger hips than what you would actually see with this kind of a chest measurement. So I'm going to go up to 40. And generally speaking, I would only try this with a size up, maybe 2. I'm using 2 because it's easier to show. Any more than that, you're starting to talk about warping your pattern. The good news is, generally speaking, unless there's some very rare exception, you're only going to need to go up a size or down a size or 2 with this method. Let's take our weights off. And we pull off our pattern. Now you see here we got our nice outline here on the table. We're going to go put our size 40 pattern down here. Now, line this up the best that you can. I've forgotten I had to snip my I had to snip my top edge on that. Let me fix that. All right, so to make sure you're in the right spot, you want to go to the dart and you want to run your straight edge out. Just gently pull it up until you're right at your stop mark. And make sure that, if you can, that you're on the other stop mark. Now, take your chalk. Take your chalk and gently just chalk out the outline. You'd also want to mark your darts there, but I'm not doing that because that's not the purpose of this exercise. But okay, now you've gotten your hip area, the area for your hips done. Should do this and lay this out the best. Like I said, this is where the art meets the so you want to line it up so it's kind of evenly distributed. Let's try this part again. That's why I like the chalk, because you can get a wet spray bottle and wash it all off. Okay, so if you will look, you'll have a significant fold over here, significant increase and a significant increase, slight increase over here. This is the one we're really concerned about. That's the facing to your shirt. So you want it extended a little bit, but it doesn't. This is the one we're more worried about. So this is where your French curl comes in. You want this to follow to the best of your ability. Basically, what you're going to do now is blend this together. And blending is a term that we use in the fabric world. And again, it takes a little bit of practice. But you want to kind of go, and you don't want to do this like, you want to make it a gradual, smooth. You don't want to overly disrupt the flow of the garment. But what you want to do sort of blend that together. So you look right here. You still have your chest measurement. You still have the basic run of the garment, but you've now put on an extra measurement in the hips. All right. For this one, you want to do the same thing. Gradual. You don't want it to be really abrupt. You want to blend it in with the lines of the garment. And it's going to take some skill and practice to do this. Do not, if nothing, you hear nothing else from me on this one, do not try this on the fabric you're making your garment out of with your on your first try with this. Take some time to practice on some scrap material. I would say make a muslin after you've done your modifications. Going back to the Pellon, another cool thing about this is that you can do this material, the same trick on the Pellon. So say it's a kit pattern company, you know that their grading system has certain proportions, and you know that you're outside of one. What you want to do in that case is you can do exactly this with the master pattern panel that comes in the envelope. Lay it out, lay your Pellon on top of it, do exactly what we just did, and then blend it. And then you have a pattern that you don't have to worry about chalking this on and doing modification, making sure everything's lined up. It's a great tool. It's a great technique. And it can be used for smaller as well. So let's say it's going to get washed anyways before I cut on it. So let's say, okay, we got our mark here. This is our stop mark. And we wanted to go, I don't know, smaller. So we'll find, where's my 36? Then we want to go to a 34. Okay. This isn't going to be a perfect demonstration of this because I don't have a 34 pattern. But let's say you chalk yourself out and you get it. And you kind of got, you line it up on the pattern and you're seeing your old chalk marks. In that case, what you want to do is, again, do the same thing we just did. So I'm going to do this on one side. So we've moved in the 34, we've moved in the waist measurement one side, which is about 1/2 inch. And again, we're going to do the same thing we just did, which is so again, you have your same chest measurement, but you've moved the waist and hips in just a little bit to make it fit a little bit better. Now, one other piece of advice I can tell you is that if you do it on the front, you got to do it on the back. Everything is everything. You can't do it on one side and not do it to the other. So when you do your back, you're going to do the exact same thing you did on the front. But that's how to make your pattern fit and work for you. It can be really frustrating to get a pattern and make something and then put it on and realize it doesn't fit. So this is a trick to make it really, really pop. So if you have any other questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll try and answer them the best I can. But appreciate you tuning into this video, and I hope that it was helpful for you. And I hope that you get something out of it. And I hope this helps you, avoid some of the pitfalls that I had to make when I was coming on. Have a great night, folks.